Support President Clinton's policies while simultaneously having some serious doubts about his judgment and about his behavior. Of course, the Paula Jones case has put all of this on the front burner. There have been high-profile sexual harassment cases before, but the decisions in those cases have sent some mixed signals about what really constitutes sexual harassment.
Yeah, and 100 lawyers have defined it in 100 different ways. But with the Paula Jones case, has there been a shift in thinking about harassment, feminism, strong women, and the role they play in society?
So with that in mind, we've assembled a special panel of women with some very strong opinions about this. We have with us in St. Louis a very familiar name in the conservative movement, Phyllis Schlafly, president of the Eagle Forum, which is a national organization of conservative men and women with pro-family values. And in Albany, New York, we have with us author and feminist Eleanor Burkett. She wrote a book called The Right Women.
And here in our newsroom, MSNBC senior legal analyst Wendy Murphy. I'm going to start with Eleanor. Eleanor, tell me, why do you think feminists have sort of always kept Paula Jones at arm's length? Why haven't they pulled her in and helped her?
Hypocrisy, probably. I mean, that's a blind answer, and it's very easy, but I think it's also true. There's been a double standard. I think that feminists, just like the far right, have been willing in this case to trade their political principles for politics. And the mainstream feminist movement wants to support Clinton and has done whatever is necessary to support him, even if it means that they've sold their principles down the river.
Eleanor, is it that people don't believe her, or is it that, I don't know, she's not worthy of the support? What is it?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. I think there's a deep level of suspicion, and I frankly share the suspicion, of anyone who appears to be, and at least in some practical terms probably is being used by the far right. So when you know that the political thrust and the money behind Paula Jones is coming from people with a clear political agenda, there's a tendency on people's part to kind of build a wall around themselves and not let that in and not try to think about that. I also think there's a class issue. I think that despite the fact that we from the beginning of the feminist movement have pretended to reach out to people of all, women of all social classes, in fact that there is a deep class bias. So I don't think that at this point there are people who really don't believe Paula Jones unless they're like living under a rock. But I think they don't want to believe her, and they also don't want to advance the political agenda that's behind her.
Phyllis, let me ask you, class issues aside, you do believe that Paula Jones has a case and that she should have an impact on this?
Yes, I do believe Paula Jones has a case. Most people, I think, do believe her now. I think her case has completely discredited the feminist movement. They obviously made a Faustian bargain with Clinton that if he would support them to the limit on the abortion issues, they would stay with him. And you can see the results of that in this omnibus bill, which is being ratified this afternoon. He gave them everything they wanted on the abortion issue in several different cases, and so they stuck with him. So the feminist movement is not for women's rights. They are not for workplace rights for women. They're only for their particular goals, and they support the politicians who advance those goals.
No matter what they do,
no matter what they do.
Behavior. Ladies, we have to go to a break.
But I find it...
Hold on, Eleanor. We have to go to a break.
Oh, sorry.
All right, thanks. We'll get to you on the other side of the commercial, and we'll bring Wendy Murphy in as well. Also, we're going to go down to Chip Reed, who is in Washington, getting other people's reactions. He's at the Capitol, so we'll be talking to him as well.
I believe that what Mr. Clinton did to me was wrong, and that the law protects women who are subjected to that kind of abuse of power.
Of course, that was Paula Jones back in April, and it seems that so many women and feminist people women who would call themselves feminists are divided on whether or not they want to embrace Paula Jones because it means attacking a president who has supported women's issues.
And polls do show, I think, that people now believe she's telling the truth, but the question is, do you stand by her or not? And we are kind of taking the pulse on the communities, and Paula Jones obviously fiercely defends her case, and NBC's Chip Reed is talking to people outside the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. to see what folks there think. Chip?
Yes, Hoda, the great thing about coming to the Capitol to do this or down on the Mall is that you can get people from all over the country. There are tourists from everywhere here at the Capitol at pretty much any given moment. Today we have Ohio, we have California, and we have Texas, and we'll have plenty of other states later as the day goes on. Let's start over here with Columbus, Ohio first, and DC United is playing Columbus in the big soccer game. I hope you guys lose. No, DC United, but tomorrow night, excuse me. But we have here Charlene and Don Litterini. You mouthed something to me, but I couldn't tell. Do you think this whole thing has been an advance or a setback for the rights of women? Paula Jones coming forward.
Well, I think it's been an advance, and I think she should go for the whole 9 yards because she represents the women.
You do, and you find her credible, and you
Yes,
think she should.
I think the media and polls do not really say what the average person thinks, us voters.
Don, I'll get to you in a second. Let me ask back here. This is Beatrice D'Amico from near Dallas. Do you agree with her?
No, I don't, actually. I don't think that bringing it forward so late and for such a massive amount of money lends any credibility to her case. I think sexual harassment is extremely damaging, and I think that it should be taken care of, but not this way.
Do you think she made it easier or harder for women to come forward with sexual harassment charges?
Neither. I don't think it's any easier because she waited so long. I don't like the way she did it. I think if you're going to do it, you should do it right up front and you have more credibility. Otherwise, you run into the Anita Hill problems, and I don't like it.
Right. Well, let's check with the husbands here. Don Litterini, do you agree with your wife or with the woman from San Francisco?
I have to agree with Charlene. I feel that the situation is...
Safe move there, by the way.
Thank you. That with the situation that we have today, the women's groups are really staying quiet about the whole situation. They're not saying anything. And the other, I think there's a little bit of not resentment, but relinquishing, trying to go forward with it. I think it's a little bit of not being able to come forward and say, and I had this happen, and I think they want to step back from it and are, kind of scared, I guess maybe is the best way to place it.
And you were a little reluctant to chime in. Do you still feel that way, or do you want to...
No, I agree with my wife. I think a case like this doesn't do anything to advance these types of cases. And the case against a sitting president is not a good precedent for females to understand how to really enforce their rights in this context.
Okay, let's go to California. We have Sandy Nowak, right? Who do you agree with here, or do you have your own version of this?
I have my own version. My version is it'll be decided in court whether she was credible or whether she wasn't credible. And if, in fact, she was telling the truth, then it does advance. It would make me less reluctant to file myself a harassment suit.
Okay, quickly, Nini Cohen, your take?
I don't think it'll ever be decisively finished, actually, and chances are it'll end up like Anita Hill, where it brings the issue forward, but I think it'll do probably equal for both, for the idea of filing and the idea of keeping it to yourself.
Okay, and Joey Nowak, by the way, Joey said that he used some of my hairspray earlier, you knucklehead. What do you think about the whole Paula Jones case?
I don't even know what it is.
Oh, I had a feeling he'd say that. But today is his birthday, so we'll be singing happy birthday after we go back to you. You can see a wide range of opinions, but a lot of people are saying it's too early to tell. They want to wait and see how this case is resolved before they decide whether this has been an advance or a setback for women. Hoda?
All right, Chip, thanks so much.
Chip Reed, we're not covering the presidential scandal. He looks remarkably like Monty Hall. All right, we got to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to our panel of guests, add a couple more voices to it, and talk about how the Paula Jones case has really affected feminism and feminists.
Susan Carpenter McMillan and other women's rights opponents who surround Paula Jones are using this case to advance their own political agendas.
Now, hearing Patricia Ireland, the president of the National Organization for Women, say that might have surprised some women who would have expected feminists to go after President Clinton for what they thought was egregious behavior in the White House. But no.
No, they've been silent and criticized for being very silent on that issue, too.
All right. We want to add another voice to our discussion. We have with us from Los Angeles, Barbara DeAngelis. She is the author of a book that you probably have read. It's a bestseller. It's called Passion. She's an expert on human relations and personal growth. And we don't want to forget, right here in our newsroom, we have Wendy Murphy, our senior legal analyst. Barbara, if I may, I'd like to start with you. You heard that soundbite from Patricia Ireland talking about how Paula Jones has been abused by the people around her, like Susan Carpenter McMillan. Do you agree with that?
Well, abuse is a strong word. I think the issue for me, and I've been thinking about this for the last 2 years as all of this has been going on, is that on one hand, I've been a feminist. I've been somebody who's been trying to empower women all my life with my work. And yet I have a difficult time with the premise that in the Paula Jones case, there was actual sexual harassment. I mean, I don't know about anyone watching, any women watching, but if for every time a man propositioned me or propositioned one of my friends, we were able to get a few $1,000,000, we'd all be pretty rich right now. So that's where I began to have an issue, and the issues have continued as I've gone along with the problem. And I think many women are very torn about this and feel funny speaking out one way or the other because there's a double standard that they're facing because of the way everything was handled.
It kind of sounds like you agree with Gloria Steinem when she wrote In Effect recently that basically a man gets one shot at boorish behavior. After that, you can go after him, but one free grope is how one person described it. Is that the way you think that it's one boorish incident, so that doesn't constitute sexual harassment?
I think that all of us have been, whether it's on a date, in the workplace, some guy says, "You're pretty, I'd like to go out with you," or, in Clinton's case, yeah, maybe it was, gross, he pulled down his pants. But the bottom line is, I don't think that's sexual harassment. Now, it's sexual harassment, obviously, if he doesn't allow her to get a job, if he doesn't promote her, etc. But the problem, from the way I understand the case, and again, I'm not an attorney, is that she, willingly went up to see him. He offered her something, she didn't want it, and that was that. I've had that experience. I know millions of women have had that experience, and is that something that's terrible? Is that something that's objectionable? Perhaps. Is that something that's legal sexual harassment? I don't think so.
It's such an important point that Barbara raises because it's unclear in the law whether a one-time incident is enough to constitute sexual harassment, which by definition has to be either severe, meaning a very, very serious sexual event, or pervasive, meaning a lot of little sexual events. And I don't think this case is clear. I'm on the fence about whether it's sexual harassment, and I think it's going to be an interesting question to hear the court discuss. On the other hand, because it is such a close case, it gives feminists who support the president the freedom to say, I care more about the manipulation and the political motivation behind her case, and I don't want to stand behind her because, on balance, I care about the fact that this is the first president who talked about child care in the White House. He created a White House Women's Office. He helped pass the Violence Against Women Act. These are things that matter in the long run.
Okay, we're going to pick it up on the other side of a commercial break. Got to go to our commercial sponsors. We'll be back in a second.
Welcome back. We're talking about Paula Jones and the effect her case is having on feminism. We are having a discussion, and I'd like to direct this question to Eleanor Burkett. She's the author of The Right Women. Eleanor, is there any part of you that feels, the least bit sorry for Paula Jones, that maybe she's actually being used as a pawn in a political game, and she's just this, poor woman from Arkansas who didn't know what she was getting herself into?
Your question gets to my whole feeling about almost this entire discussion, as if women are these poor, weak pawns who a man makes a disgusting pass at you and you can't just say, go to hell and forget it, and you have emotional trauma for the rest of your life, or that you can be used by all these people. Women are adult human beings who are strong-willed or not strong-willed, just like men, and have to be held accountable for their behavior. And Paula Jones has to be held accountable for her behavior. She can't be used. I mean, that even the notion that she is being used says somehow that she's this helpless victim. And I am really sick of all of this helpless victim stuff that is being advanced from Phyllis Schlafly to now. The great irony is as if suddenly Gloria Steinem and Phyllis Schlafly are in bed together, when in fact, I think the bottom line here is, if we're to believe Paula Jones, the president did something boorish and nasty to her, fine. As the last guest said, boorish and nasty things happen to women and men and children every day, and so what? We don't legislate against that, and Paula Jones has to be held responsible for her behavior.
Phyllis, since your name was brought into this by Eleanor, do you want to go ahead and respond?
Well, I certainly hope I'm not in bed with Gloria Steinem.
That would be a story.
But I really get
you're agreeing with her?
A little tired of people being surprised at the way the feminists are behaving. And I hope they realize now that the feminists are flagged for Bill Clinton. They do not speak for women. Now, on this question of sexual harassment, it's a very murky area. It's not made by law. It's mostly judge-made and EEOC bureaucracy-made law. But if what Clinton did to Paula Jones isn't sexual harassment, I just don't think there is anything called sexual harassment because it was the big CEO. The big CEO.
What were the consequences?
I don't think the consequences matter because of the intimidation factor. It is the big CEO and the entry-level employee doing an outrageous thing to her. And, of course, the difference between Paula and Monica is that Paula rejected and Monica accepted.
Phyllis?
But I think when it is that power relationship...
we got to go to a break. We're going to pick up the discussion on the other side of the break.
I have also considered the fact that the court's ruling affects many women other than myself.
And Paula Jones says she's not just fighting for herself, but for all women.
And as she heads back to court against President Clinton, a lot of people are asking, sort of in that esoteric sense, whether the case has helped or hurt women in their battle for equality. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Linda Vester.
And I'm Hoda Kotb. And again, if there is no settlement in 2 hours, oral arguments will be heard in the Paula Jones case, and we're all waiting to see how that'll turn out.
Meanwhile, we want you to call us and get in on the conversation because we figure there's some strong opinions out there about whether or not this case, the Paula Jones case, has helped or hurt women. So call us at 1-888-MSNBC-USA. I swear I say that telephone number in my sleep. Also, we're going to go down to Chip Reed, who is at the Capitol. He's accosting people outside the Capitol building with his microphone.
Like no one else can.
In the most polite way possible.
Yes.
So we'll go down to him for a live shot. All right, in the meantime.
Yes, we're going back to our guests. We did interrupt Phyllis in the middle of a thought because we had to take one of those necessary breaks. Phyllis, why don't you go ahead and pick up where you left off?
Well, I think if we want to talk about the offense of sexual harassment, what Clinton did to Monica and to Paula is a perfect example of what it is. I certainly think that's worse than just having some pinup pictures about an office. Clinton's treatment of women was really abominable. Monica said it best when she said she felt disposable, used, and insignificant. And that's the way he treated them, and I think it will be a shame if he gets by with that shameful behavior.
But you know what's really bad, I think, about the Paula Jones case that makes a lot of women, whatever side of the fence they're on, angry, is her demand for, in some time ago, $2.7 million. Her most recent demand now is $2 million. Her own lawyers wrote her a letter saying this case is not worth more than $50,000. So just from a human perspective, it seems wrong to extort the president, to exploit a women's issue, and to make something political out of a women's issue, I think takes advantage of the dignity behind sexual harassment law. And it makes it harder to support her.
The first $1.5 million goes to the lawyers. The first $1.5 million.
But that exactly is my point, Phyllis. No lawyer would have spent $800,000 representing Paula Jones, knowing that it was only worth at best $50,000, unless it was a case that involved the politicization of the civil justice system, the President of the United States, the very heavy-handed tactics that have been used for political reasons. It's just not right, and it's an abuse of the process. And I think a lot of people care very much about that, irrespective of how they feel about sexual harassment.
Especially when you consider that she started by saying that she didn't want any money, she was going to give it to charity, all she wanted was an apology. That was a moment where I felt like, oh, this could really advance something for women. But what happened to all I want is an apology? What happened to charity?
Eleanor,
that all seems to have disappeared.
Let's pick that back up when we get a news update. We have to go over to the news desk and find out what else is going on in the world today. So let's go over to Patty Ann Brown.
And welcome back, everybody. During this hour, we've been discussing the Jones case and its impact on feminism and women in general. And with us in St. Louis, Phyllis Schlafly, president of the Eagle Forum, a national organization of conservative men and women. In Albany, New York, author and feminist Eleanor Burkett. She wrote the book, The Right Women.
Also, we have with us in Los Angeles, Barbara DeAngelis. She is also an author. And one of her books you may have seen on the bestseller list is a book called Passion. She's also an expert on human relations and personal growth. And with us across the table in the newsroom is MSNBC senior legal analyst Wendy Murphy. Before we start up the discussion again with you guys, we'd like to just go to the phones because we have a lot of people who've called in. Alan in Louisiana, we're talking about how the Paula Jones case has affected women. What's your opinion?
Oh, thank you. I really enjoy your show. I watch it every day.
Thank you.
Listen, Phyllis is right on. I cannot believe what would Bill Clinton do if someone done that to his daughter if she was on the job somewhere. I wouldn't blame the man a bit.
Good point.
I've got 2 daughters. They're both grown. If any man, God knows, the morals of this country is really gone down. I can't believe people will not stand up and say, this is wrong, and the man has lost his right to be as our president, as far as I'm concerned. And I.
All right, Alan, thanks for calling.
Let's go
thank you much.
Thanks a lot. Let's go to Dennis now in Missouri. Dennis, go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Dennis, but I'm with Phyllis, too. I think she's right, and I think it will help women, and I think bosses and businesses and politics and everything else might think twice before they do something. And Mrs. Murphy, I don't know what...
Well, we lost.
That was not intentional. We want to point that out.
It was technology. It had nothing to do with what Dennis was saying. All right, let's go on to Thelma in Maryland. Thelma, do you agree with Phyllis Schlafly as well? It seems like so far everybody else who's calling in does.
Hello.
Hi, Thelma, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure, go ahead.
I wanted to say I give her credit for going ahead with this. I know of less things that would upset me than what she went through. And I don't know why people don't realize that he does these good things to overcome his bad things.
We are having a few phone problems.
All right, you want to go to Curtis in Kansas. Let's see. We're really sorry about these phone issues. Curtis, you there?
It's call waiting. It's call waiting or something.
All right, let's move on. All right, let's go back to our guests.
Yeah.
Phyllis, so it seems like so far all of our callers are siding with you. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think everybody recognizes that if he were a corporation president, he'd be long since gone. That's the way it is. Most people do not want to put up with this type of behavior. They know it is shameful. I think there's one other interesting point that really Clinton created a lot of his own problems when he changed the federal rules of evidence to allow the court to go into the background of the defendant, the man defendant, in any type of a sexual case. And that is what had the Paula Jones case lead to the Monica case. And I think Paula's case ought to be reinstated because we now know that Clinton lied about Monica, and that was exactly the same thing that he did to Monica that he did to Paula.
Mm-hmm. You know, actually, can I just follow up? Sure. Because I think Phyllis raises one good point, which is that given the public awareness over the past decade or so about sexual harassment and gender discrimination in the workplace in particular, most companies do have a zero tolerance policy, and that's very important, and I think we should be pleased with that result. It's certainly something that we should be proud of, even with regard to the Paula Jones case and all the discussions that we're having. But that doesn't mean that women must line up like monolithic lemmings behind every woman who sets a claim in motion, because they're not all equal, they're not all legitimate, and maybe more important than anything, they're not all designed to vindicate the law around sexual harassment. Some are designed for political purposes, and I think a lot of people believe this case is much more about politics than Paula Jones. Those are very different Paulas, and they're very important differences. I read an op-ed piece last week that said, look, stupid, it's about politics, and women are smart, and women are political, and women have power, and women can stand up proudly and say, don't make me stand up with Paula Jones, because I care about much bigger issues than whether her case deserves to have her day in court. I don't care about her case. I care about child care, Social Security, health care, violence against women, and so forth. And for these reasons, I'm with the president.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break, Wendy. And
now we want to just ask a question over to Phyllis Schlafly. Phyllis, before we went to Chip Reed in Washington, we were sort of talking about the issue of money. Wendy has a problem with it. Eleanor has a problem with it. Barbara has a problem with it. In terms of Paula Jones' credibility, it seems to diminish her. Do you feel the same way, or do you think that there's another side to this?
Well, all she wanted was her reputation back, and if Clinton had apologized, the money wouldn't even have been an issue. I think for women in general, there have been pluses and minuses, but for the feminist movement, the Paula Jones case has completely discredited their spokesman.
All right. We're going to use that word to go to our break, Phyllis, and we will be right back in just a moment. More discussion to come. Stay tuned. We're talking amongst ourselves.
Yes, we are. We'd like to welcome everybody back, and we are continuing our discussion. and we think saying goodbye to...
But not yet. We have a question for Barbara. You have a
yes,
question
that's
for
right. Barbara, I didn't flat out ask you, but do you think this is a setback for women, the Paula Jones case, or is it something that's actually going to help women?
I don't think it's going to help women, and I'll tell you why. I am totally, as I think all women are, for any legislation, any case that supports a legitimate claim of sexual harassment. But sexual immorality, sexual stupidity, sexual narcissism, those things go on all the time. I haven't seen the harassment in this case, and I don't know if a man being stupid is worth $2 million.
All right, Barbara, fair enough. We thank you for that. And we need to say goodbye to Phyllis Schlafly. Phyllis, thanks for joining us. The rest of the gang is going to stick around. We're going to talk some more when we come back.